Olá, people! Sejam bem-vindos a mais um episódio de Lendo em Inglês. Nós estamos lendo junto aqui no canal o livro The Star Shepherd, do Dan Herring e da Marcy Kate Connolly, que hoje a gente vai ler o capítulo 7, beleza? O objetivo é ajudar quem tá aprendendo inglês a ler melhor em inglês, tá? Então, eu vou ler o capítulo em voz alta e você pode ir lendo junto comigo se você tem esse livro, se você adquiriu o livro. Se você ainda não adquiriu, o link para compra desse livro tá aqui na descrição do vídeo, só ir lá que tem o link tanto para você comprar o livro físico quanto o e-book, tá? Lembrando que esse livro é uma compra internacional, é um livro em inglês, então o valor do livro físico é maior mesmo, mas você pode comprar o e-book para poder ler junto comigo, ou você pode ler através das legendas, tá? Sempre que eu começo a ler em inglês, eu deixo as legendas aqui embaixo passando para você que quer ler junto comigo. Pode ir acompanhando na legenda, você pode assistir o vídeo todo para poder pegar, né, o capítulo todo e depois você volta o vídeo e vai pausando para você ler em voz alta as frases, tá? É muito importante, se você tá querendo melhorar a sua leitura, que você de fato leia em voz alta, tá? Para você notar se você tá com dificuldade em alguma palavra, como que tá indo a sua evolução, ok? Então, a gente vai começar aqui a página 47 no capítulo 7. Vamos lá. Deixa eu só arrumar aqui, ó. Chapter 7. Cairo woke to the sound of the watchtower door slamming shut and Cypher whining by his bedroom door. Cairo got up to let the dog out and found his father, disheveled and harried, muttering to himself and shoving items into a bag. Tyrion's eyes widened when he saw Cairo. "Someone has stolen them," he said, an unmistakable quiver in his voice. "I must find them." Cairo rubbed his eyes. The sun was up, so it must be morning now. "The stars?" he asked. His father nodded vigorously as he closed his bag. "It's the only explanation. Nothing else makes sense." "Carol, this is very important. I need you to stay here and tend to the stars. I'll be back in a day or two." Equal parts of fear and excitement flooded through Cairo in a heady mix. "That long? Watching by myself?" His father picked up 2 large vials of sparkling powder from the kitchen table and shoved them into Cairo's hands. "Take these, only use them if necessary." Cairo puzzled at the vials. "What is this?" "Stardust, of course." His father put on his coat and slung the pack over his shoulder. "But what?" Tyrion sighed. "I wouldn't do this if it wasn't so urgent. Everything depends upon it." "Where are you going?" Cairo frowned. His father's face grew serious. "I can't tell you that. You must not follow me. Stay here until I return." Tyrion ruffled Cairo's hair and quickly ducked out the door before Cairo could say another word. The 2 days Tyrion said he'd be away passed quickly, then 2 more, and 2 more after that. Soon an entire week had gone by without a word. Cairo grew more and more uneasy with every day that slipped by. On the 7th day, he could hardly sit still. He'd never been alone for this long before. When he woke that afternoon, he opened his bedroom door and saw that his father still had not returned. He let Cypher outside and checked the yard. No sign of his father. The cart was still in the shed out back, just where he'd left it. Cairo had thought that was odd too. Where had his father gone that he wouldn't have needed his cart? Cairo stumbled back inside. the rocks in his gut churning. How could his father leave him? Sure, he ignored him most of the time, but to leave him all alone to fend for himself, to watch the stars by himself for this long. He paused by the empty kitchen table. Perhaps Tyrion had stopped by the village for supplies on his way out of Dren. Someone there might have a clue to where his father had gone, and he could use more groceries too. Caro couldn't sit still any longer. He grabbed his coat and bag and headed out the door as fast as his feet would take him. Night descended as he ran to the village, and he couldn't help keeping one eye on the sky overhead. No more star clusters had fallen since his father left, just a single one here and there, but it still worried him. The spindly trees rose up beside him, casting long shadows every which way. Each noise made Caro jump, and every degree that the temperature chilled made him wonder if one of the Vizsla was nearby. He shuddered. He never wanted to encounter another one again. When he reached the villa, he snuck in through the side gate that Andra had showed him the last time he was there. He wasn't sure how serious the people were about his father not being welcome anymore, and how far it extended to himself. Could his father have stopped here and run into trouble? Might that explain his prolonged absence? Caro made it to the marketplace without incident, but saw no ready sign of his father. A few shopkeepers were still there, but most were closing up for the night. Caro was tempted to stop at the bakery and say hello to Andra, but when he walked by, all he saw through the window was Bodin sweeping the floors. He glanced up and scowled. Caro ducked his head and moved on to the grocer. The old man sighed when Caro entered. "Excuse me, sir, but I'm trying to find my father, Tyrion. Have you seen him today?" The grocer raised his eyebrows but shook his head. "Sorry, son. Haven't seen him since the last time he was here raising a ruckles." He cleared his throat and his meaning sank in. Tyrion really wasn't welcome anymore. Caro quickly purchased a couple items he needed, but didn't feel comfortable staying any longer than necessary. Then he stopped in every store that had lights on, but all the merchants said the same thing. They hadn't seen his father recently, and they were just fine with that, thank you very much. Worry gnawed at Caro's insides as he stopped in one last shop, the steel smithy. Tyrion was Domon and Smith's best customer. If anyone in Dren could care if Caro's father vanished, it would be him. Caro paused in the doorway, letting the tangy smell of the melting fires wash over him and bring a little warmth his way. His hands were shaking, and he shoved them in his pockets. "Domon?" he called. "One moment!" boomed a loud voice from the back of the shop. The front was lined with all sorts of interesting items polished to a gleaming shine. Swords, knives, fishing hooks, as well as an impressive array of gears and even a few star casings in the corner. Domon came out balancing a newly crafted blade in one hand. "Caro, what are you doing here this late?" "I'm looking for my father. I thought you might have seen him." Hope filled Caro for a fleeting moment. Then Domon's expression shifted to a frown. "I'm afraid not. Haven't talked to him in a couple of weeks at least. Stars must be falling slowly these days." Domon smiled. though something about it felt off to Carol. But why would he lie? Thanks anyway, Carol said. He wandered out of the shop and stood in the middle of the now empty market. His father had left him and gone after whoever was stealing the stars. He must have either run into trouble or completely lost track of time, and Carol had no means to determine which it was. He had no clue where his father had gone and no idea where to begin looking. Hot tears burned behind his eyes. Tyrion had officially abandoned his post and his son. Carol wasn't ready for this. He wasn't even sure he wanted to do it. But now his father's responsibility to save the stars had truly fallen to him. E é isso aí, pessoal. Terminamos aqui o capítulo 7, né? Antes, até o capítulo 6, o que estava acontecendo era que muitas estrelas estavam caindo ao mesmo tempo e tanto Carol quanto o pai dele, Tyrion, não sabiam o que estava acontecendo. Eles descobriram que os monstros lá, né, as Vislas, que são monstros que se alimentam lá da energia interna da estrela, que são combatidos, na verdade, com a energia boa das estrelas quando elas estão no céu. Essas Vislas, quando a estrela cai, elas vão lá e tentam matar a estrela, tiram o coração da estrela e tudo mais. Eles descobriram que estavam caindo muitas estrelas, mas não sabem por que elas estavam caindo assim todas ao mesmo tempo. O pai do Carol, desesperado, foi tentar falar com o conselho e não teve resposta. O conselho não explicou o que estava acontecendo para o pai do Carol, que é o pastor de estrelas, né, ali daquela região. E aí, alguma coisa aconteceu que fez o pai do Carol pegar suas coisas agora neste episódio 7 e sair em busca, né, do que quer que esteja acontecendo, mas ele não explicou pro Carol, não falou pro Carol onde ele estava indo, não deu informação nem nada. Então, nesse capítulo 7, é o Carol indo lá na vilazinha lá perto, onde ninguém gosta dos dois, né, ninguém gosta do Carol nem do pai dele, tentar ver se alguém tinha notícia do pai. Ninguém tem notícia do pai, então Tyrion tá desaparecido e Carol tá sem saber onde o pai foi parar. E as estrelas que pararam de cair aos montes ainda estão caindo, mas, né, nesse capítulo eles falam que elas estão caindo de vez em quando, uma ou outra, que era o que era mais ou menos normal no começo da história. Então tá nesse pé. Tyrion desaparecido, Carol sozinha, abandonado lá na torre, né, do pai dele, que eles ficam vigiando o céu lá na torre. E o Carol sem saber o que fazer, meio que já há uma semana sem saber onde o pai foi parar. Estamos neste ponto da história e, né, no próximo capítulo vamos ver aí se tem mais informação do que tá acontecendo com o Tyrion. Pessoal, muito obrigada por chegar até aqui no vídeo. Se você gostou do vídeo, clique em gostei, que isso me ajuda bastante. Se inscreva no canal. Se você já é inscrito, ativa o sininho para você receber notificação todas as vezes que eu postar um vídeo novo. Se você quiser ajudar o canal de alguma forma, você pode ajudar enviando os links do canal, né, os links do vídeo, recomendando o canal para outras pessoas. Essa é a melhor maneira de você me ajudar, né? Quanto mais pessoas souberem da existência do canal e gostarem do canal depois, melhor, né? Isso me ajuda bastante. Ou se você quiser adquirir qualquer produto na Amazon usando o meu link, que são os links que eu deixo aqui de associado na descrição do vídeo, isso me ajuda bastante. Todos os vídeos têm o link ali de associado da Amazon, tá? Então, ao usar esses links, vocês também estão contribuindo para a manutenção do canal. Pessoal, muito obrigada pelo apoio e a gente se fala no próximo vídeo. Tchau!